My choice to be the next superintendent of police is this man, David Brown. David Brown has nearly 40 years in law enforcement. Over the arc of his career in Dallas, he was a beat cop, a detective, a SWAT team leader, and a supervisor of the 911 dispatch center. David also took a leave from the DPD to serve as an assistant city manager in Dallas. He believes in professional development and building trust and all the other values we seek to elevate, but it's toward the mission of bringing peace in neighborhoods and communities. While leading the DPD as a chief, David led the department through wholesale reform, encompassing increased transparency, accountability, and officer training. During his 6-year tenure as the head of the Dallas Police Force, Chief Brown led his city to become the first in the nation to institute department-wide de-escalation training. He also implemented community policing initiatives, implicit bias, brought body cameras to Dallas, expanded mental health wellness supports for officers, increased diversity within the department, and published never-before-released data on the use of force and officer-involved shootings, all of which helped Dallas's violent crime rate to drop to 50-year lows. And while these changes were unfolding, Chief Brown was a tireless advocate for the well-being of his officers. Now, in everyone's life, there are seminal and defining moments, and David Brown has had many. In the aftermath of the tragedy in Dallas, the largest loss of police in the line of duty since 9/11, one journalist wrote of Brown, and I quote, "He knows violence from every angle. He is an expert in anguish." Death, especially gun violence leading to death, has come directly to David Brown's doorstep and draped itself around him. In August 1988, David Brown responded to the scene of a shooting where an officer had been killed. And as he approached, he saw a pair of glasses from the fallen officer that he recognized lying on the ground. The eyes behind those glasses he had looked into 1,000 times. They belonged to his former partner, who had just been killed in the line of duty. Putting aside his own grief, Brown took it upon himself to break the news to his former partner's death to his children. And then 3 years later, in 1991, Brown's younger brother, Kelvin, lost his life at the hands of drug dealers who shot and killed him. And then in 2010, soon after being appointed chief in Dallas, Brown got word that a police officer was killed by a gunman in nearby Lancaster, Texas. That same gunman was himself killed in a shootout with police. The gunman was Brown's own son, his namesake, David Brown, Jr. And then on a hot summer night in July 2016, America came to know David Brown. On that fateful night, when people gathered to protest police violence, officers walked with protesters to ensure marchers could safely exercise their First Amendment rights. But fate had another plan. 5 police officers were assassinated by a deranged gunman who shot them with ruthless accuracy of a trained marksman. Being a police chief in Dallas for 6 years was not easy, not one single day. David Brown inherited a department deeply segregated, where even the bargaining units are formally separated by race. A department desperately needing reforms. He never shied away from making the tough, necessary reforms. He is a leader who commands respect. He leads by example, sets the standards appropriately high. And as he has said to me, he lets people know he cares so that they will know, he lets people know he cares so they will care what he knows. I know well that a person's true character comes through in crisis. Leadership, or the lack thereof, is revealed in bold relief when tragedy strikes, and particularly when lives are on the line. On that fateful night in July 2016, with 5 officers already dead, a gunman with a seeming unending supply of ammunition, who was by then pinned down, still shooting, and becoming increasingly unhinged, David Brown had only a series of impossible choices. He made the choice to take one life to save many others. Ironically, I remember that night well. I was on a work trip, sitting in a hotel room, talking to a different police leader, my former boss, Terry Hillard, when Hillard told me he had to go because something bad was happening in Dallas. I turned on the TV and watched with horror the news coming from Dallas, and I saw for the first time the man who now stands before us. As the news of the tragedy unfolded over the following days and weeks, and David Brown stepped into the national spotlight, I could never have imagined that less than 4 years later, I would be the mayor of this great city, or that I would be presenting David Brown as the next superintendent of our great police department. David Brown, the man I watched from afar, exhibited extraordinary leadership, not only in that moment, but as he helped his department and his city grasp the enormity of the tragedy. He also started the slow, painful process of healing some very deep wounds. In my time with him, I've come to admire his intellect, experience, and determination, to be sure. But I also appreciate his humility. David Brown grew up poor in a segregated neighborhood in Dallas where relations with the police were fraught. He was a great academic achiever, raised by a single mother and his maternal grandparents, and earned his way on scholarship to the University of Texas, Austin. No small feat. But after his 3rd year, he came home that summer and saw his community disintegrating because crack cocaine had landed like a bomb. David felt the need to act, that tug of service that so many of us know well. David left the university, took the police exam, and in 1983 became a Dallas police officer. You know, we often recite the words empathy and compassion when we describe the lives of poor souls struggling to rise above their current, often desperate circumstances. And while I sincerely believe we have to have a compassionate heart and exhibit empathy, particularly in public service, these words can often ring hollow and denote a certain disconnection where one is a mere spectator to somebody else's life. But when you walked in someone else's shoes, and your life's tapestry is marked by triumphs and tragedies, you cannot help but feel a sense of connection to another's lived experience, and the authenticity of that connection will shine through. Growing up in the segregated South, poor and black, despite the many personal and professional accomplishments which have marked his life's journey, David Brown views himself as part of those communities, deeply embedded in its strengths and weaknesses, its highs and its lows, but never far from its center, its core being. As a law enforcement leader and a man of faith, he knows all too well he will never be successful unless the communities he serves are successful. All of our fates are intertwined. So why David Brown? In this time, in this moment, the Chicago Police Department, indeed our city, needs this humble leader, a man of integrity whose mettle was forged in tragedy, and who strongly believes in the hope and promise that each new day brings. I declare, right here, right now, that I am totally committed to his success, because his success means the department's success, and the department's success means our city, each and every one of our residents, will enjoy the peace and prosperity that comes when streets are safe. That is the very definition of success. I have every confidence that David O'Neill Brown will be the kind of leader who will continue our gains in fighting crime, bridge existing divides between police and community, embrace constitutional policing as a core ethos, and make the Chicago Police Department the finest in the nation. He will need our prayers and our unbridled support and the embrace of a city that has itself known tragedy. But even now, in this unprecedented time, a city that has shown grace, generosity, and the fundamental goodness that no virus can ever wipe away. We are Chicago, and we deserve the best. And in this time, for this moment, David Brown is the absolute best. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our next superintendent, David Brown.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lightfoot, for your very warm and moving words of introduction. Before I begin my remarks, let me just mention my condolences to the Chicago police officer, Franco, who passed this very morning as a result of the COVID-19 virus. I want to send my condolences to his family, to the men and women of the Chicago Police Department. I am deeply honored and humbled to be standing here today. Like Mayor Lightfoot, I also want to give my personal thanks to Superintendent Beck for his leadership. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
As well as to the Chicago Police Board for the professionalism throughout this process. Thank you again, Foreman, for everything that your board provided. But most of all, I want to give my thanks to Mayor Lightfoot for her faith and confidence in me. As you heard from the mayor, my life and career has taken place in the city of Dallas. But the call to service and to rise is one that is heard across the nation. As any police officer will tell you, it's a call that crosses city lines and transcends state borders. As Mayor Lightfoot mentioned, it's that call that has driven everything that I've done in my career as an officer and public servant. And yes, it's a fire in my bones. All of us are at our best when we serve others. Our entire democracy, particularly our local democracy, was built on that ethos. And I am incredibly proud to be able to serve the great city of Chicago, Chi-Town, that windy city, and stand shoulder to shoulder with visionary public servants like Mayor Lightfoot and other community and faith leaders as we embark on this journey together of service, of strengthening this already great city by bridging the divides, supporting our officers, and bringing security to our neighborhoods, which is what we all want. Frankly, Chicago is a lot like my hometown of Dallas. Strong, proud, and tough, not to mention the great barbecue. But the biggest connection I've seen in the passion people feel about improving their communities and helping their city succeed, like kindred spirits crossing paths toward the apex of excellence. That mission may seem a little distant right now as our entire country is focused on getting through the terrible COVID-19 crisis, but in many ways, that mission is also more important than ever as we see how vital our police officers and other public servants are in our city. As we plan for the many challenges we face moving out of this crisis, we will do the heavy lifting needed to get our communities up and running again. And we will get our communities up and running again. As Mayor Lightfoot mentioned, I have experienced triumph and tragedy. But if I may, I would like to add that many times those two happen at the same moment. As dark as some of those times have been, it is also in those times that I have seen incredible resiliency, faith, and the infinite goodness in people. And I am confident these same characteristics are here in Chicago. To all of our city's officers, I very much look forward to meeting you, listening to you, and serving next to you in the weeks ahead, weeks and months ahead. And to all the great residents of this city, I would only say, David Brown, reporting to duty. I'm at your service. And I'm truly honored and humbled for this opportunity to serve with no expectation of anything in return, but for the joy seeing one unsafe neighborhood now come alive and thriving. With that, it is now my distinct pleasure to welcome Superintendent Beck to the podium to say a few words. Charlie.
Thank you, David. It has been a great honor to serve the City of Chicago and Mayor Lightfoot over the past 4.5 months. But I think what I found the most pleasure in was serving the men and women of the Chicago Police Department. I thought I'd do that one last time for you. One last time. But it has been an honor of a lifetime to serve these men and women, because this is a tremendous police department and it cries out for leadership. And today, that cry has been answered. And I want to thank Mayor Lightfoot. She has made a selection that will be historic for this department and this city. I've known David for over a decade. He is exactly as he presents himself. He's a strong man with a good heart who believes in public safety and who believes in community policing. He will make a great leader, and he will make this department and this city much better than it is today. And I want to thank the mayor. Although the mayor is the first person to call me Charles Lloyd Beck since my mother passed. Although I find it fitting in a way, because she has been such a strong person in my life over the last 4 or 5 months, and such a great public safety mayor for the city of Chicago. And I think that my good friend David will learn that he has a partner, and that partner will allow him to do great things. So congratulations, David. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now we invite President Guion Foreman of the Police Board to come and make a few remarks. President Foreman.
Mayor Lightfoot, Superintendent Beck, Chief Brown, Alderman. The Police Board, we kind of started off with, with the unexpected superintendent search, and here we find ourselves during the pandemic, and it was an interesting search process for us. We held 3 meetings across the city. Myself and other members of the board had meetings with over 25 meetings with community groups around the city. We had intimate conversations with aldermen and faith community and outreach, and asked, what did people want in a superintendent? What does Chicago need? We asked members of the Chicago Police Department, what is it that we need? We went through a very rigorous process, and I just had a call with the board prior to coming here when the mayor told me that she was going to make the announcement today, and shared with the board what her pick was, and we all said that this is a great pick, that this is one that we as Chicagoans can all be proud of. What we heard a difference of opinion, of course, when we were going out to community and heard different things, what people thought that we needed. But when we thought about all of those characteristics, Chief Brown, you absolutely fit the bill. The police board looks forward to working with you, and I know that the city is going to be looking forward to working with you as well. As we said earlier today, we never know where our steps may lead, but I'm proud that you will be helping our city that we all love become the great city that we know that it is. And the mayor said, become the great department. We have a great department, and we're going to make it even greater. So thank you very much. Look forward to working with you.